said in lecture 1 that we were not going to be treating this course in Money and Banking as a course in applied microeconomics. So we weren't going to say, how do we use utility functions to talk about banks, okay? Nor a course in applied macroeconomics. I wasn't going to say, let's use ISLM, let's get behind the LM curve, okay? Both of those are legitimate and common ways of teaching money and banking. But I said we're going to try to start from the other end, okay? From the world itself, the actual operations of money markets, and try to learn from that and inductively draw some lessons from that. And that's sort of what I've been trying to do throughout this semester. The image that I have in my mind about how we're studying this and how it relates to other economics and finance might be helped by thinking about a timeline from the past to the future. And what we've mostly been focusing on is sort of now, okay? The clearing system that happens sort of today and every day, okay? And there are, promises about the future, and there are investments that have been made in the past, but none of that is going to change in the course of the day, okay? All of those are fixed, and they're not just fixed by assumption; they're just fixed in fact. Okay, you're not changing the capital stock or doing anything like that in the course of the day. All of those things are just data, okay, from the point of view of thinking about money markets. And I have sort of tried to tell a story in this day about the two forces meeting each other, okay? Cash outflow forces, okay? Okay, which are a disciplining device. You have to make payments. You have to have a means of payment. And cash inflows, which are the opposite, okay? They give you elasticity, individuals' elasticity. We talked about this from a microeconomic point of view, that is to say, for an individual, okay, the balance between cash inflows and cash outflows tells you whether this person is illiquid or not, okay? But also from the point of view of the economy as a whole, that if in general people are able to meet their cash outflows with their cash inflows, then there's no stress in the system and interest rates are low. But if it starts to get stressful and cash outflows exceed cash inflows, so people need to roll over to they have to borrow from the future and put off the day of reckoning. They pay for doing that by driving up the money rate of interest. So that's the sort, in broad outlines, the image of the entity that we've been trying to study this semester. So we planted our flag, our consciousness, on the money markets, the day-to-day clearing in the wholesale money markets. Now, I want to call that now, the money view. And we'll say, in the money view, the present determines the present. Thinking about time. Everything is sort of now. And it's flow sort of point of view in this way. Stocks are kind of unchanged. They're in the background, okay? So today I want to contrast that, okay, and connect it up, okay, with, first of all, the economics view. Which we all know and love, without maybe being aware of exactly what it is. Okay, so let's bring this up to consciousness a little bit. And I'm going to call this the past determines the present view. And you can see this in the most characteristic, this production function that we describe here, okay, that the flow of output today, okay, is a function of the capital stock, okay, which has been accumulated by investment over the past, Okay? So this is the sense in which the past determines the present. It's the accumulation, it's the investment of the past generations, way back in time, okay, that determines the flow today. If there had been more investment, there would be more flow. If there were less investment, there would be less flow. But whatever is invested is invested. You can't change it. You know, it's sunk costs here. The past cannot be changed. The past determines the present. This is very much sort of an Adam Smith point of view if you read The Wealth of Nations, and that's why he's so worried about parsimony and profligacy. You know, that he feels that the future of the human race depends on saving today, on making sure that we preserve the sacrifices of our ancestors who have made and not fritter it away. So he's worried about the princes living their profligate lifestyles, that this capital stock is sort of vulnerable to being plundered, okay, by princes. And instead, we want to accumulate it, so we think that we want to increase the capital stock by having investment today, so that every year we have a little bit more, a little bit of improvement. That sort of slow turtle growth sort of notion of growth by capital accumulation. We get more income by acquiring more capital. This is the sort of economics worldview, focusing on the capital stock. The past determines the present. Now, in most of the history of economic thought, there has been a struggle between these two points of view. Okay, the money view is a natural point of view for people who live in the money market, you know, whose jobs are in the money market, people who are bankers, people who are central bankers. But it's not particularly a natural point of view for anybody else. Okay, and so it tends to be a minority point of view. Okay, and you get economics being built basically on this sort of point of view, which seems more natural to, you know, retail customers and maybe more ethical in some way too. This whole idea about the virtue of saving and things like that, it's what we owe to our ancestors and all of that thing. For most of so if you wanted to study the money view and get it was always a minority point of view. But there were always people writing treatises about this, you know, practical bankers. So you could always study this, but it meant being out of the mainstream in some way. There was in the 20th century, things shifted. In fact, more recently in the post-World War II period, there's a new point of view that came into being, which I call the finance view. The finance view is that the future determines the present. The future determines the present, or rather our ideas about the future, our expectations about the future. So, for example, the price of capital, not the quantity of capital, not the physical quantity of capital, but the price of capital is the key variable in finance. Okay? And where does the price of capital come from? Okay? It does not come from the hard labor of all the people who built that capital in the past. Not at all. The price of capital comes from the future. Okay? The price of capital is the expected discounted value of the flow of coupons. Now here, this is my bond formula that I showed you before. Okay, but they're all in the future. Okay, and these are expected at time zero, at time now, looking out into the future. Those expectations. This is a radically subversive point of view compared to economics. Okay, because it says I don't care how hard you worked on that, okay? If this capital stock, okay, is not productive, it is worthless. It is worth zero. It is worth zero, okay? And I don't care, and so this is sort of the mentality of the tech bubble and stuff like that, right? It's like, imagine it, and then suddenly you can capitalize it. And by capitalizing it, you get access to enormous amounts of purchasing power today without doing anything. without actually producing anything. It's just the idea that maybe you'll be producing something, okay, that gives you power today to be spending, and you can use that power to try to make your dreams come true, okay? So these are dreams. These are dreams out here, okay? And this is the wherewithal to try to make those dreams come true. Okay. Maybe you won't. You make promises based on those dreams. Maybe you fail in those promises. Those promises are promises to make cash payments. Okay. So now we're back to the money view, right? That we have here the future determining the present, the finance view. We have the economics view, the past determining the present, and we have the money view, that both of these things, okay, the accumulated real production coming from investments of the past are causing certain patterns of cash flow, and the way they were financed causes certain patterns of cash outflow, okay? And those either match or they don't, okay? Generally, people have made mistakes, and so there will be promises to pay that can't be paid. And you can put them off for a while or not, or just go bankrupt and fail. Similarly, there are going to be dreams about the future, okay, that require outlays today, outlays that are greater than inflows, and either you get somebody to take the opposite side of that, or you don't. If you don't, then the dreams don't get a chance to be realized, or whatever. Both the finance view and the economics view are sort of stock views of the world, right? This is the price of the capital stock. This is the quantity of the capital stock, okay? The money view is a flow view of the world. It's about cash flows today, and it's about the present. So in a way, economics and finance are the mirror images of each other, okay? But finance, and this is the main thing I'm going to be talking about today, finance also has a problem with money. Just as I said, throughout history, if you wanted to study the money view, you had to kind of turn your back a little bit on the economics view. The same is sort of true today, where we've seen this big battle, the big intellectual battle in the last 30 years, okay, has really been economics view versus finance view, okay, actually. Or that would be my assertion. You'd have to take my course in the history of economic thought to tell you that. But I think a case can be made that the big intellectual battle is this, and it's still going on. But there's a modus vivendi that's been accomplished. Basically, finance is in the business school, economics is in the economics department. And in economics, finance is treated as a subfield, a minor subfield maybe, of economics. In the business school, it's a whole area, and economics is a sort of minor subfield of finance, okay? But so that's a modus, it's sort of dividing up the spoils, okay? But neither one of them have much room for money, okay? So my whole life project and the project of this course has been to make the money view talk to the finance view, okay, as a way of moving on this conversation that historically in the 19th century was all about money view versus economics view. I think the future of the money view has to be about money view talking to finance here. And so that may help put, as you're studying and putting this course together in your mind, have that in mind as a theme that is in my mind as I'm writing all the lectures. Now, when I say there's a tension between finance and money view, what do I mean? Okay, I'm going to read here. This is a quote from Fisher Black. The biggest challenge to monetary economics, in my point of view, okay? And he got me started on this road. In 1976, he wrote a manifesto, okay, what a non-monetarist thinks, okay? And here's what he said. He said, he published this, by the way. This is a brave man, 1976. I believe that in a country like the US, with a smoothly working financial system, the government does not, cannot, and should not control the money stock in any significant way. The government does, can only, and should simply respond passively to shifts in the private sector's demand for money. Monetary policy is passive, can only be passive, and should be passive. He gets stronger, okay? The pronouncements and actions of the Federal Reserve Board on monetary policy are a charade. The board's monetary actions have almost no effect on output, employment, or inflation. Okay. Now, what I want to explore today, okay, is what is it about the finance view, or Fisher Black's version of the finance view, which, as we'll see, came from the capital asset pricing model, that led him to that logical conclusion, okay? And what is it that he's missing, okay? Because this is a huge challenge. If this is true, then we have just been wasting our time, okay, in this last semester, okay? So this is a big challenge, okay?